Season 7 of Sea of Thieves is right around the corner, bringing with it a plethora of new features to the game, including the ability to name our ships and become the true captain of the ship that we spend so much time on. But before we look forward to the next season, let's take a look back at Season 6. By far, the longest season in the game, spanning from the beginning of March until July. But was this a bad thing? Season 6 launched in a pretty interesting time for the game. Just a few months before this season launched, it was announced that the Arena game mode would be shutting down with the beginning of this season, which caused an uproar in the community. Some players were cheering for joy that this incredibly toxic and broken game mode was being removed, me included. But some die-hard Arena fans were rather upset at this decision and voiced their opinions clearly on Twitter, as people do on the internet. Now, whether you liked Arena or not, there was a new type of story-driven event added to the game to make up for the loss of the Arena, in the form of adventures. Adventures weren't necessarily introduced in this season. In fact, the first one was in February, over a month before the launch of Season 6. So you may be wondering, why am I talking about these if they aren't particularly new to this season? Well, I personally consider the first adventure to be a form of demo as to what was to come in Season 6, as there were a total of 4 adventures added to the game throughout the span of the season, 1 per month, and the adventure only being in the game for 2 weeks at a time. Each adventure had its own flavor, and this made each one very interesting to dive into, especially since each one was only in the game for a limited amount of time. These adventures ranged from a long fetch quest to go through every sea fort in the game to get lucky enough to rescue all the Golden Sands outpost traders. I didn't like this one very much. To a thrilling fight against the legendary Shrouded Ghost with 5 other pirates, to an all-out faction war for the fate of Golden Sands Outpost, where it was up to the community to decide the fate of the outpost. If you would like an in-depth recap of how each of the adventures were like, and get caught up on the story so far heading into Season 7, I have made a series called the Sea of Thieves Adventure Log, which is linked up there in the info card. Adventures were more like tall tales rather than voyages in terms of how they were played. Each one began with a short cutscene from Lorena, who has a favor to ask, then meet up with another NPC to continue the story. If I'm gonna be honest, the actual gameplay portion of some of these adventures was about as tedious as a merchant cargo run. I'm looking at you, Forts the Forgotten. I mean, come on, all we did in that adventure was basically play through the brand new sea forts, which was fine, but the RNG factor of finding all of the traders made it feel super tedious. Shrouded Deep was a nice change of pace from Forts the Forgotten, and it was a form of boss rush against all 4 megalodons in the game, with an epic final battle against the Shrouded Ghost. If you can find 5 other pirates to fight alongside you, which took my crew up to 2 hours to find. this was just like how the Hungering Deep was back in 2018 when Sea of Thieves just launched. So it was kind of cool to see this kind of gameplay brought back where we had to communicate with other players. But it did take a while. Luckily, the fight was super fun and fast-paced, which made up for that wait. Just a little bit. Lost Sands was very cool in the grand scheme of things, giving the community the power to decide the path of the story in the future, where we can rather side with Merrick and rebuild Golden Sands Outpost, or side with the Servant of the Flame and destroy it. Each side had its own form of voyage in how you were going to help or hurt Golden Sands Outpost. But unfortunately, as cool as this adventure was, it had its own issues, with one side being more fun than the other, and people thinking that it was rigged from the start. In the end, Team Merrick won, and Golden Sands Outpost was officially rebuilt as New Golden Sands Outpost. And finally, The Forsaken Hunter is a very cool, solid adventure that gives a good bit of lore and has an amazing cutscene at the end, which I have conveniently posted. But in the end, it is still relatively easy and straightforward, which for experienced pirates isn't the most exciting thing in the world. Yeah. Adventures were a pretty mixed bag in terms of gameplay. Each one had its own problems, but I'm not just here to talk negatively about adventures, because I really do think that this is a great way to entice people to keep coming back to the game every so often, to see where the story goes next. Personally, I really like adventures, and I know that there are some people out there that don't like them as much, and that's entirely okay, because in the grand scheme of the game's content, they really just provide something new for everyone to do in the gaps between big content drops. Speaking of big content drops, there were 2 in this season, which by default makes Season 6 the most content-rich season we've seen so far, with the first content drop being Sea Forts. Sea Forts are designed to be a new type of fort event, featuring everyone's favorite ghost pirates, phantoms. They take a much shorter time to clear out than skeleton forts, but are not limited to a world event timeline. Sea Forts are an on-command event instead, which means that they are always active, as long as another crew is not already there, of course. This reminds me of the sunken treasuries we got in Season 4, but on land with phantoms. Hold on, this is editor me talking. I just want to add in that the music for Sea Forts is just on the next level. They knocked it out of the park with this one. I mean, come on, just listen to it. Oh, it's so good! Okay, back to the review now. I see what the Sea of Thieves team was trying to do here, but after a few runs of a sea fort and getting all the commendations out of the way, there really isn't any replayability for sea forts. That would be the case if there wasn't an absolutely overpowered way to stock up your ship. You see, unlike the sunken treasuries, sea forts feature a wide array of barrels scattered around the fort. And some of them, like the ones that are attached to these pulleys here, are usually filled with pork, chicken, and ruby splashtails that can be cooked up on the gigantic 4-slot stove. These are perfect for getting a head start in stocking up your ship, while also getting a little bit of loot to start out your voyage. Along with this, Sea Forts introduced a new way to interact with the environment, where we can now open up doors, dig through chests, and look for hidden loot items that are scattered around the fort. This system of interacting with the environment will be eventually reused in the second half of Season 6 with the new Pirate Legend Voyage. Sea Forts as a whole are a pretty solid addition to the game. On the surface, they're quick-timed events that can be cleared out within 10 minutes. But with some further exploration, they provide a great way to stock up your ship's barrels, especially since they aren't too terribly far from the outposts. Now, let's talk about the second half of the season's content drops. Along with monthly Pirate Emporium drops, the second half of the season gives us the biggest update to the Athena's Fortune faction ever, with the addition of the Legend of the Veil. By far, the best voyage to ever be added to the game. But that wasn't the only thing introduced in the second half of the season. Along with the voyage, this mid-season update brought a level cap increase to the Athena's Fortune faction from level 20 to level 30, and introduced a new line of cosmetics to unlock along the way. This allowed all players, new Pirate Legends and old, to level up the faction, and earn some new stuff as they play through this new voyage. The Legend of the Veil is nothing like we've seen before in Sea of Thieves. Think of a tall tale with the quality of a pirate's life that gives you a ton of Athena's Fortune loot that we've never seen before, and a chest of legends at the end. And that is the Legend of the Veil. It is absolutely amazing. And if you would like a more detailed explanation of this voyage, I have made a guide of it right up there. The Legend of the Veil is a 3-chapter voyage that has you battling against Reaper's phantoms, decoding new forms of maps, and plundering a fleet of sunken ships. All of it ending in an epic final battle that has us destroying ghostly forts that are brought forth with the power of the Veil Stones. In this voyage, we are tasked to gather 3 Veil Stones to power up the Veil of the Ancients, a powerful relic with the ability to breach the gap between the Sea of Thieves and the Sea of the Damned. Every time we do this voyage, it gives us different objectives, which makes it super replayable. Because no 2 Legend of the Veil voyages are exactly the same, which is very important for an update's content to be enjoyed for years to come. As a whole, this voyage is fun, it pays well, and it gives us a good chance to engage in some good old-fashioned PvP. In my opinion, this is the second best thing that we have received from seasons yet. Now I say second best thing because, well, you already know what's in first place on my list. Another bit of content that we got in Season 6 was the introduction of mysteries. This is a new type of content that is very unconventional for Sea of Thieves, in the fact that it is released in tiny little bits, with more clues released at every patch. This mystery starts with the murder of DeMarco, the face of the Sea Dogs. And unlike Adventures, there is only one mystery that will happen at a time, and it'll span for the rest of the year. In my opinion, this is the hardest piece of Season 6's content for casual players to interact with, since it is more tied to the social media aspect of the game, rather than the actual game. At least that's how it was when it started. You see, when this mystery started, it required the community to reach a certain amount of likes and retweets on a Twitter post in order for more information to be revealed. Now, I'm all for community-run events like this, but I feel like in the future, there should be more ways in-game to progress this mystery, rather than just relying on social media likes. Now, lately we have seen a lot more clues being discovered in-game, which is very nice to see. And I'm genuinely excited to see where this mystery goes, and of course, to see who done it. I have very mixed feelings about Season 6 overall. It has very high highs and very low lows. On one hand, it gives us the best voyage that we've ever seen in Sea of Thieves history. 4 adventures that all brought variety to the game, but then it's also paired up with sea forts and mysteries, which seem rather mediocre in comparison. In this case, however, the good outweighs the bad, and overall, I'll give this season a solid 8 out of 10. As a whole, I think it is one of the best, most content-rich seasons we've had so far. It provides consistent content throughout the 4-month duration of this season, and it gave us an amazing voyage to replay throughout the coming months. It did have some weak points, but that only makes me more excited to see what Season 7 brings to the table, which is launching in a little less than 2 weeks from today. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching this review. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give this video a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more Sea of Thieves guides, update concepts, and lore analysis videos. And as always, I will see you out on the seas.